What can you learn from a retired Marine Corps lieutenant colonel about marketing? And not just any retired Marine Corps lieutenant colonel, but someone who was at the heart of the military's media response during 9/11. My guest today is Mike Snyder, and he is a retired Marine Corps lieutenant colonel who served as a public affairs officer in New York City, the Pentagon, and NORAD, where he led media relations in the aftermath of 9/11. He is a graduate of the Marine Corps Command and Staff College, and he has a master's degree in marketing communication from the University of Kansas. And he's also taught strategic marketing for years in an MBA program where his unorthodox approach to marketing earned him the highest student scores within the program. So we have an expert on the show here today. And Mike's conviction is that marketing is not hard if you learn to embrace your humanity. And as we embrace our humanity, we understand that number one, humans are flawed. And number two, humans love stories, particularly stories where there is a pivot, where something goes wrong, a problem occurs, and that problem is then solved. And if you're going to become an expert at marketing, you need to understand that aspect of human nature and the inclination that we have to listen to stories and to respond to stories. You must become a good storyteller. And so we dive into a lot of very important aspects of marketing in our conversation. And this is going to be a conversation that you're going to listen to more than once if you want to get the most out of it. It's directly aimed at the owners of construction companies. And so if you're the owner of your construction company, you should share this with people in your organization as well and have discussions around the content. If you go to my website, by the way, constructiongenius.com, under the podcast button, you can find a transcript for this conversation. And you need to study that transcript. You need to look at it and take it very seriously. Because again, it's a free-flowing conversation, but there's a ton of tremendous information here that will benefit you. So let's dive right in. Thank you for listening to Construction Genius here today. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Mike, welcome to Construction Genius.
Eric, thank you.
Please tell the audience, where were you on 9/11?
Wow, 9/11, it just so happened that I was a major in the U.S. Marine Corps, and I'm a reservist, so I was at NORAD. I was at the headquarters of NORAD in Colorado Springs on 9/11. And I watched, having lived in New York City, for 7 years, I watched as those planes hit the towers. Then all hell broke loose.
Just for the audience, tell us what NORAD means.
North American Aerospace Defense. So that's what the American Aerospace Defense. And it's responsible for aerospace defense over North America. So when those planes hit the towers and hit the Pentagon, the entire world media turned to NORAD and said, what the heck? Why didn't you shoot down the planes? And so I was one of 3 media officers who took hundreds of calls over the next year. I got mobilized for a year from my marketing job in Wichita, Kansas, right?
Okay, so you were in marketing at the time, and you were a reservist in the Marine Corps, major at the time. So just give the audience a little bit of a flavor. What does a media officer do?
Well, no, it's funny, right? I mean, we're the mouthpiece of the organization, of the command. And I'll tell you exactly what happened, And so the world started calling NORAD, and they wanted to know one of several things. They wanted to know, one, why didn't you shoot down the airliners? And we would say, well, we don't know yet. 2, what are you doing to protect America tonight from more attacks? And we said, well, we don't know that either yet. And 3, is George Bush inside Cheyenne Mountain? And we said, well, even if he was, we wouldn't tell you. And so that was about the extent of the questions. But really, in the evening hours, I got the midnight to 8 a.m. shift. And around midnight, news station in Denver called, and they said, hey, we hear, jets above Denver. Are we under attack? And it was just an amazing moment to be an information officer representing that command. And so you have to say something. You can't say, well, we can't tell you anything. And so I just said, hey, look, we're awake tonight so your listeners can sleep. And we know the men and women of NORAD are doing everything we can to protect this country. And you don't have to worry. and that really became the message going forward. As we pieced together, because NORAD didn't know. I mean, we just didn't have the information that we needed at that time. So it was a learning experience for them too.
Okay, so this is interesting because one of the things that contractors face on a daily basis is obviously not a crisis as large as 9/11, not to diminish it or anything like that, but they're in crisis management mode on a regular basis. So, Mike, what was your role as a media officer? Obviously, you were the forward-facing communication point. What role did you play in the internal discussions in how the message was going to be shaped? Or how did you see that? Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, this is really interesting, even from a contractor perspective, because, I think, and having run several companies, and as you know, I mean, I have a commercial real estate business on the side. And so my business partner and I, we routinely buy old buildings and refurbish them. And we use commercial contractors all over the place. We get RFPs and we spend millions of dollars. And so it's interesting from a business owner perspective. Okay. And even NORAD, okay, I'll answer your question. It's like, what is our main messaging objective? How do we get through the crap, okay, and still stay on point? And so we were working very closely, and I was on the Tiger team representing NORAD on a communications perspective. And I was working with the National Security Advisor Office with the White House and the FAA and the FBI and even the Royal Mounted Canadian Police on one thing. And it was only one thing that the White House cared about. And it was like, NORAD and everybody else, we have got to restore air confidence or travel. We have to restore confidence in air travel, or else our economy is going to fail. That's the one thing we have to do. Okay. To answer your question, it wasn't the minor messaging. It was that. That was it. We have to restore confidence in air travel. Got it. And so from a business owner perspective, and I've owned several businesses, and hey, man, crap happens. And so you come over the top and it's like, what's that one thing? We're going to continue messaging, right? And it's like, look, I got to tell you, I mean, during 2021, we were trying to complete a project and no fault of our contractor, really. It was like, look, I can't get the elevator parts. I can't get the roofing part. I can't get the parts. And the schedule got really extended. And how do they manage that kind of crisis, right?
That's interesting because you mentioned 2021. Was the lack of availability because of COVID?
Oh, yeah. It was the supply chains got super crowded, because everybody was rushing to buy stuff. And that meant that whatever schedule normal supply parts for commercial building projects were on, they oftentimes got delayed. And I mean, that sent up the cost. And by the way, the cost of all that. So, it's really interesting, right, from a marketing perspective. And by the way, I want to define marketing really quickly. Okay. And I understand, all right, that the contractor category does marketing vastly differently than a lot of other categories. And I'm fine with that. But the definition of marketing is the same regardless of category, and most of us screw it up. So most of us think, okay, that marketing is websites and videos and ads on Google and SEO and sales presentations and all that. No, that's not marketing. That's actually marketing communications, okay? And that's what I've done a lot of work in my life around marketing communications. But marketing is that superordinate function up top. And the definition of marketing that I adhere to, as do a lot of great thinkers in marketing, they may say it a little differently, but generally it's this. Marketing is the function within a business that identifies what a market will value and pay for that the company can actually do at a price point that will provide a profit to the shareholders. That's it. That's the definition of marketing. And so if you lead a construction company, then you got to ask yourself, what value do we uniquely provide, that a market wants to buy that will provide profit? And so what you find a lot of times is contractors, it's so funny because, I talk to construction companies all the time and they're like, oh, we've been doing this for 30 years, or, hey, we've known you so many years. Aren't we good buddies? And it's like, no, what unique value do you provide that I'm going to value, right? I'm going to pay for, and maybe even pay a premium? Because a lot of contractors are like, it's RFP, and so we need to be the lowest bidder. And I don't think that's true. In some cases, maybe government, whatnot, but in private industry, I think that people will pay a premium to get their jobs done. Because I got to tell you, in the example I gave you, it took us almost a year longer. And so, if we had been finished a year earlier, we would have been collecting rents, and, we wouldn't have been paying on that banknote for a whole year. And so, yeah, charge us more, damn it. Charge us more for these parts, and prioritize us. And so if you're listening closely, a message can be, look, our company does not overextend ourselves relative to projects. And while we don't buy all the stuff up front and have, a bloated inventory, we do prioritize. All right. And so if your job gets started, you're going to have a priority of supply. I'm just talking about what we could have said in 2021. And your project, while we can't guarantee it's going to come on entirely on time, it's not going to be so disgustingly late that, you're going to be worrying about paying your bank note.
So you made that definition then. What a market will, I want to make sure I got that right. Marketing is, it sounds like what you're saying is the question that marketing research is asking is, what will a market value and pay for that a company can do at a profit? Did I get that right? Okay.
That's A, B, C. And by the way, it's the function. So Eric, this is really critical. So this is where business owners really screwed up, especially in construction, right? I've seen it all the time. They hire a little marketing coordinator who responds to RFPs and maybe does the website stuff and some stuff on the side, and they think they've got marketing covered. No, they don't. The function of marketing rests solely with either the management team and or particularly with the owner of the business. That's where the marketing function resides. Everything else is marketing.
Okay, so the way that you stated it, it sounds like where we're starting with a great deal of thought process. There has to be some intensive thought that goes into marketing, a degree of serious research.
It's so funny, right? I love that word research. Now, part of what, being a Marine, right? I'm a Marine officer doing marketing. And so we bring the KISS principle. Dun, 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 keep it simple, stupid. They say otherwise, but let's keep it clean on the show here. And so, research really means listening. Just listen to what your prospects, what your market is saying. And a lot of times, when principals listen, they're listening to sell. So you have to stop listening from that bias. Okay, I'll just give you a quick story, okay? So when my business partner and I, we started our marketing firm in 2010, right after the Great Recession. We started from scratch. And we were fortunate to have a good reputation in town in Wichita, Kansas. And so we had all kinds of, manufacturing, partners coming to us day after day, distributors, construction. And they all said the same thing. Hey, after the Great Recession, we kind of think that marketing is going to be more important going forward. And so how do we do that? We're thinking we need to hire a marketing director. And so we said, okay, based on the classical structure of advertising, that category, we said, great, once you have that marketing director, call us because, we need a marketing director inside the client with whom we can do work. And they got all disappointed, they went away. And after 2 or 3 of these, listening to these principals, Bob and Henry, we called them, we hunkered in the kitchen one night and we said, you know what? We don't think that they actually want to hire a marketing director. We think that they want us to be their marketing director. It was a hunch. It was not common practice in our industry at all. So the next Bob and Henry that came to the office, we changed our tune. We changed, all right, there's 4 Ps, product, place, price, and promotion, okay? So we changed.
Hold on. Slow down, Mike. Product, price,
and promotion. These are the classical 4 Ps, and I like to keep it classical and simple. So on the fly, we changed our product, and we changed our price, and we changed our promotion. Now, promotion is simply how you talk about yourselves or your product. So, right? So we were an advertising agency. So the next meeting that happened after listening, doing this research we're talking about, Eric, we said to them, hey, you know what? We hear you. It sounds to us like you really don't want to hire a marketing director. You don't understand marketing. You don't understand how to hire one. You don't understand how to manage one. What if we did that for you? And they went, oh, really? You guys could do that? They go, yeah, I have a whole stable of marketing directors. Now, they were actually called account directors, but account directors are marketing directors. We just changed the title, how we talk about them. So we said, hey, we'll give you an outsourced marketing department where you get everything you need. That's a product under a flat monthly subscription, and that's price, right? And you get it on a fractional basis. You'll get your marketing director on a fractional basis, and we'll charge you. And we did pricing research right there in the meeting. We said, how about $7,000 a month? And they went, So we dropped it in the meeting. Well, how about $6,000? And so we settled on $4,000 a month, and they went ring-a-ding-a-ding because that's what they were going to spend on a marketing director anyway. And then, Eric, believe it or not, we had to figure out, we had something we knew the market wanted to buy. And by the way, that new offering flew off the shelf. And that offering took us on a national level because that's what companies, from 5 million all the way up to $250 million. That's what they want. They want simplicity. And so we had to change our offering on the fly. And then we had to figure out how to make money at it. And we did. Took a little bit.
So then let's explore that a little bit, Mike, because you're describing here something that I think a lot of people don't do, or if they're doing it, they're not even sure that they're doing it. And that is having conversations with their customers. They don't know how to set up that conversation. So put yourself in the shoes of a commercial construction company president. You're sitting across the table from an ideal client. What kind of questions should I be asking that client to determine how I should be shaping my marketing approach?
Okay, that's a good question. So what we have to do is get past the commodity question, right? What is this going to cost? And those basic commodity questions. When can you start? That kind of a thing. So what we have to get to is in today's society, in today's American economy, we're buying other things. We're buying convenience. We're buying things that we don't really want to do. We're buying intangibles, Eric. And so that company principal has to, unfortunately, and honestly, I would not leave it up to the salesperson because the salesperson is just trying to close a sale and get a commission. Okay. And they're always going to come back and say, look, we got to get this done cheaper or sooner. Okay. So I don't know what it is in that category necessarily. It can be, I got to tell you, I mean, it's like, look, honestly, we have done this ourselves. We don't want to work with that project manager. We don't like that project manager. Can we work with somebody else? Now, what if the client doesn't say that? And the principal thinks that we actually like that project manager because we've used them once or twice before. But nobody's ever asked us, do you like him or her? And by the way, we will make purchasing decisions because people like, this is proven, okay? People like to do business with people they like. And this is also the great mistake. We talk about like the great mistake in contracting. Well, they think it's a relationship business because people like to do business that they like. And it is. But the great mistake is relationships, man. One, relationship sour. We've experienced that, right? They let you down. They overpromise salespeople. Two, they go away. Your relationship with that company goes away. That just happened. We just saw that. And all of a sudden you got no relationship with the company. So, basing your marketing, if you want to call it that, on relationships, relationship marketing is also a phrase. It's got to be down there on priority.
Okay, but again, just going back to that, because you were doing some real-time research there, right? When you were sitting in front of your client and you figured out this fractional marketing director, you figured out the pricing on the fly and all those kinds of things. And I'm the president of a contracting company. I'm trying to get to some of those intangibles. And I think one of the mistakes that contractors make is they phrase the intangible, or they attempt to phrase what the client is buying in the words of the contractor and not in the words of the client. So therefore, when they're speaking in a marketing environment, the client doesn't hear them because what they're saying doesn't resonate with them.
That's correct. Look, a lot of the value is not spoken, right? That's where it's like, man, part of it is look at best practices across the category. I got to tell you, there's something right here the market would value a lot. There is nothing worse from a client perspective when you're using a contractor than you go to the project and no one's there. And you're like, what the hell? What's going on with my project? And then you call the project manager, and guess what? They're stressed out. Maybe they got 5 other things going on. And you don't hear back for a couple of days. And then you're ready to choke somebody out. Okay. And so a great strategy. Now let's talk marketing strategy. Okay. So let's say that, what clients want is one, they want transparency. Sure as day. I don't care what category you're in. Your customers and clients want transparency. They want communication, right? So let's say you have a strategy, a marketing strategy, and we like strategies, Eric, that are 1 to 3 words, not more than that. So if I were talking to a prospect, I would say, look, you got to understand, first of all, one of our primary priorities for you, a strategy, is transparency. Now, tactically, what that means is we set up online project rooms when you get a client login. And I know a lot of your clients do this, right? But I'm just reaffirming this is good stuff. This isn't a website. This isn't a video necessarily. But yeah, we're going to set up project rooms and we're going to give you daily updates, your project manager, even if it's like, hey, nothing happened today. But at least that's communication and that's transparency. And if something is happening, if it's something important, we're going to take some video. We're going to upload the video. Maybe we're going to have a chat. If the electrician is there, we're going to have an online video real quick. Hey, how did today go? Blah, blah, blah. So maybe some things that might get lost, right? In the details. The electrician may say, yeah, we ran into a little twist. All of a sudden, what happens is you guys are looking like heroes because every project has its twists. But a lot of times those twists don't get communicated. And so we continue to make our valuation decisions based on pricing and timing instead of appreciation for, we found a bit of asbestos and we removed it, didn't even tell you, we just took care of it and we're going to do it. Maybe there's a reserve we got to take some things out of. I don't know, making this stuff up. But it happens every day under a strategy of transparency.
Right. Let me ask you this. What is the connection between marketing and brand?
That's a really tough question. All right. So brand, And a brand strategy is certainly a subset within marketing, okay? And it is perhaps, depending on the category you're in, supremely important. And I think that certainly in construction and contracting, the brand is supremely important. You can call it brand reputation or brand equity. You have to protect that because, you screw up one project, especially if you're in a local market or in a specialized category, which I'm going to, you quick serve dining or casual dining and all those chains, and they talk to one another. So you could be all of a sudden foreboding blacklisted from serving that particular market. Yeah, so you have to protect your brand. So you have to build that brand. And very important, let's talk about this. This is the one opportunity that I think a lot of companies in that category, they don't really pay attention to. And that is you have to build your story. A brand is nothing really more than a story. And you have to embrace storytelling. And by the way, so we just published a book. It's called The Great Marketing Lie. And in it, we talk about what is the great marketing lie. And I'll tell you right now what it is, Eric. Everybody thinks marketing is hard. And marketing is not hard. Marketing communications is hard, bro. But marketing itself is not, because we do marketing every day as principals and as humans. We look around you. I'm looking at the stuff behind you. You bought all of that because you found value at some point and you were willing to pay a price. So we practice marketing every day. So we know as business owners fundamentally how to do marketing.
So hold on a second. You just said something there. You said marketing is not hard. It's marketing communication that's hard.
That's correct.
Please explore that a little bit more. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that is, I keep going back to humans, right? Why is it important, humans? Well, I mean, humans like storytelling. We know, right? We go to the theater and all that. So thousands of years ago, we were sitting around campfires telling stories, and that's how we evolved as humans, right? So that's why marketing is essentially not as hard if we just embrace our humanity and embrace even our buying decisions on a daily basis and reverse engineer, why did I just make that decision?
Let me just make a point right there, okay? Marketing is not hard if we embrace our humanity and our tendency, our proclivity to storytelling. That right there is an incredibly important nugget for you to be thinking about as you're listening to this.
Totally. So let's go back to your question about brand. And it's like, so you have to develop that story. Really, the unfortunate thing is we let stories escape us all the time. And frankly, I got to tell you, one of the best opportunities to capture and tell a story around is when something bad happens. Don't deny it. There's a persuasion theory says that you're more persuasive when you embrace a weakness in your argument. You address it, you acknowledge it, and you move on. That makes you more persuasive. And so it's like, look, hey, man, so I do it all the time in my business.
Hold on, Mike. Hold on. Let me ask you. Why does that make you more persuasive? Because we don't want to do that, right? We want to present to the world, I'm totally awesome and everything's fine. But you're telling us to do exactly the opposite. Why is it that we struggle with that?
Humans have a tendency to distrust somebody who does not tell the truth. If it doesn't pass the smell good test and the taste good test, then it's not going to pass the sales test. And one thing we know as humans is nothing ever goes 100% right. And so if somebody is telling us you smoke up our ass, then we're going to see that. And we're going to go, thank you so much. Hey, you know what? I got a meeting I got to get to. Meanwhile, there's somebody, look, I do a lot of sales, for my company. And it's like, look, I tell them, and I just straight up tell them, I said, look, we're running fast. And, we're blowing and going, trying to get your marketing on the road. And, there's a lot of cooking in the kitchen that you're going to get to see. And we allow you in transparency, right? I was talking about before. And we have the courage and we trust you to be able to take the spillage and the breakage that occurs in the kitchen. Not everything is going to be right. And if you see something that isn't right, point it out. And what I'm doing is I'm transferring responsibility onto the client. Okay? Don't come after everything is done saying, well, I never liked that message or I never liked that color. Call it out early. An anvil is our logo because that anvil as a logo helps us tell part of our damn story. We throw stuff on top of that anvil and we're banging away on it, man. And smoke's flying and sparks are flying and sweat's flying. We actually tell this story, Eric, just like this. And clients and prospects love it. And we say, if something's not right, we're going to throw it right back on that anvil and we're going to hammer away on it until it's right. So if you listen to what I'm saying, as part of our story, I'm saying mistakes happen, especially when you're moving fast, and we're going to make it right. And it will not cost you. We say so, because it's under subscription.
Hey, this is Eric. Thank you for listening to Construction Genius. And now is the time for my commercial. Yes. And as I always say, Manscaped approached me one day and asked me to have them as a sponsor of the show. I refused them because I couldn't read a Manscaped commercial. But I can plug my book because my book is totally awesome. And it's all about effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice specifically for construction companies. If you're listening to this, you are the leader of a construction company, so you need to read this book. Go out to Amazon, spend $20, get yourself a copy, spend a few more bucks, and get copies for your entire leadership team. If you get 10 or more copies, email me, and I will schedule with you a 1-hour Zoom meeting with your leadership team where we can have a Q&A, and I'll provide some bonus leadership training for your organization in that Zoom meeting. I would normally charge $2,500 at least for an hour of my time. You're going to get it for around $200 if you purchase 10 copies of the book. So go out to Amazon, get yours right now. And now let's go back to our conversation with Mike. So it's really interesting, right? Because on the one hand, we want to protect ourselves and project to the world this competency. And obviously, competency is vitally important in construction. So I'm not trying to overstate this. So we're not saying it's okay to be incompetent, because it's not. But at the same time, we're talking about building trust with people. And when we do embrace our humanity and tell stories around mistakes that have happened and how we have then recovered from those mistakes, that then lends a great deal of credibility to our messaging. Is that what I'm hearing from you, Mike?
That's correct. So if the first strategy is transparency, I think the second strategy, let's just call it story building or storytelling. And I think that a tactic underneath that, and this is if you need to understand as a business owner how strategies, objective strategies and tactics work, just get the book, The Great Marketing Lie, or we can talk about it for half an hour. I'm not trying to pitch anything. It's like I just know this is a need. Okay. And so a tactic underneath the storytelling strategy is what I would call articulating the pivot.
Articulating the pivot.
Articulating the pivot. That's correct, right? It's like, okay. And then another tactic underneath that is going to be video. And another tactic under that is going to be website. Okay. And another tactic underneath that is going to be blogging. And so what happens all of a sudden is marketing is no longer random. It's like, okay, we've got a marketing strategy of storytelling. And how we're going to do that is we're going to tell every project we do has a pivot in it. It just does. It's like, and a pivot is not bad. It could be bad depending on how we handle it. But a pivot is when something unexpected happens and we have to pivot. So what we're going to do as a company is we're going to tell the story of that pivot.
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on. What is it about the pivot that makes it compelling? Not a specific pivot, but why is that pivot thing important?
Because as a buyer, I'm going to expect something is going to go wrong with my project. And what I want to know, and this is differentiation between the three companies I'm talking to, is how are you going to handle that pivot? And especially if a company can say, we have a term for it, okay, which is brand vernacular, which goes right back to that. We call it the pivot and a pivot. And so if I'm talking to three different companies and one is like, hey, let's go golfing and hey, let's have lunch. And another one is like, oh, we're the lowest price. And I got somebody over here saying a pivot always happens and a pivot can destroy the project or destroy your budget. I want to tell you some stories about these pivots. I'm going to go to this third guy. Well, I'm not even going to be talking pricing yet. I'm going to be going, wow, that is fascinating. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Okay. So here's another question about it is sometimes people's marketing messages, there's a question around the number of messages. And so sometimes I think people get diffused in their marketing efforts because they're trying to tell too many stories and the stories aren't articulate enough or they're not pointed enough towards the particular person. So how many stories should I be telling through my marketing? Or let me ask you 3 stories. Okay, go ahead.
3. I mean, that's why, look, I mean, KISS, right? Keep it simple. So when I say, I try to boil it down to 3, right? Hey, have 3 strategies, no more than 3, and, have no more than 1 to 3 words per strategy, because otherwise people get lost. And in your messaging.
Give me an example. Give me an example of that, please. Can you please give me an example?
In the construction category?
No, it doesn't have to be in the construction category, just so that we can hook it in.
So let's just say there's 3 strategies. I'm making this up. But look, I got to tell you, I mean, strategies don't have to be entirely custom and they don't have to be entirely creative. I mean, there's just a finite number of strategies, really. Now, tactically, you can get creative, but let's just say that I'm a large contractor and these are my 3 strategies. One is transparency, the other one is storytelling, and the other one is expertise. Now, the expertise one is really interesting, right? You can get deep in that and you can really define what that really means. So, but let's say those are my three strategies. Then I go up to my first strategy and I define.
Hold on, Mike. Let me just ask. To my ear, right? Transparency, I get that. Expertise, I get that. Storytelling sounds like something like that's what I'm going to be doing with the transparency and the expertise.
Well, no, you can be transparent without telling a story. Okay. Or let's re-architect this. Okay. Transparency, brand, and expertise. And a tactic underneath brand could be storytelling. Okay, we're like, we're always going to be building our brand. A tactic underneath that is storytelling. So this is where, it's helpful to have a guy like me with gray hair because, it can get a little confusing at this level, just architecting. But once you have it done and baked, guess what? You now spend 3 to 5 years, even 10 years, just executing against these strategies. And so here's a key challenge question for your listeners. What are your 3 strategies? And if you can't articulate them, then you need help. And here's why you need help. Because things may be going great today, but what if there's another great recession around the corner? What if there's some unexpected thing that happens and all of a sudden you need to have built a moat around your company at that time? Building a moat around your company takes some time and it has to be strategic. And I swear, I just see this over and over in so many categories with so many clients, and they act tactically and, we try to get them to act strategically, and it's hard. That is a little hard because as a business owner, you got to get your management team aboard, and maybe Bob or Sally been there for 10 years. They don't understand it. Well, maybe it's time for Bob or Sally to be retired. Maybe you need some fresh blood. And so, you got to handle it from the headshed level. You have to make it work.
Let's go back to this pivot, because I do think this is really important in terms of how you even integrate that into let's say you want to articulate 3 messages. Sounds like that pivot should be baked into each of the messages, that idea of the pivot. Is that right?
Well, I love that. I love that a lot. There's, intertwining things makes it stronger, whether it's steel or it's even yarn or rope, and it can make your strategy stronger when they support one another. I love that, Eric. That's actually really cool. So absolutely, you can make the pivot part of the expertise. You can make the pivot part of the story and the brand, right? And I love the fact, that you can say, look, when the pivot happens, you have to have the expertise in house. That could be part of, what that really means is we have the expertise in house. And I have to tell you, as a buyer, we're looking, because what we saw when our project went off the rails, that contractor that we were using, they were using so many subs, it got out of control really quickly. And so we learned something was, hey, with at least some core services, we need that in-house. We need that expertise in-house. Just an example how we rely on in-house expertise. Now, I'm not saying anything new to anybody. Let's architect it strategically and put that out there in our marketing communication so it's all of a sudden not something that we're just taking for granted and we expect people to understand. And we have to say it in a way that is differentiated from our competitors. If our competitors and us are saying the same thing, then we need to get into an exercise, Eric. We call it a repositioning analysis, okay? A repositioning exercise, and it's an XY axis. It's very simple to do. It's in the book. And anybody can use it to get their management team saying, look, we're competing head to head with this competitor over here, and we need to reposition them away from us. It's not repositioning us away from them. We need to reposition our competitors away from us, and all we have to do is change our XY axis, how we're talking about stuff.
Okay. I'm interested in this pivot thing a little bit more. I want to go into it because I'm thinking that there's a number of pivots that take place when someone is purchasing and using construction services. So let me articulate it and just see if you can go with this, Mike. So let's say we're in negotiations around a contract and the client is considering me and another contractor or two, and it's not a low bid environment, it's a negotiated environment, and we're talking. And there's a pivot there that causes the client to want to pick me over the other contractor. So there's one pivot. Then let's say we've engaged our in-services and we're going through the project, and inevitably some sort of crisis comes up and a pivot occurs there where we go from pain to pleasure. We go from a schedule issue or a quality issue and we overcome that. Okay, so because there's multiple pivots that go on during a relationship with someone when they're going through a construction project, it's my thinking that I need to be able to understand those multiple pivots and articulate that in my marketing message. Does that sound right?
Yes. No. Eric, you're getting it. You're there. It's not necessarily easy. I can tell you what makes it easier, right? So let's say there's a pivot and it's a negative. Part of our marketing strategies is embracing the pivot. We embrace the pivot. We don't deny the pivot. We don't act embarrassed about the pivot. It happens. Now, the second strategy was brand. So when a pivot like that happens, and wherever it is in the life cycle of a project, from selling to completion, the brand is also a strategy. So it helps when a pivot happens and wait a minute here, brand is definitely something, we're concerned about. So we are now going to define our response to that pivot in light of building the brand. And that helps inform that pivot. Okay. Now I'm not saying that we're going to write it off. Okay. It just means we're going to have to approach this from a brand building perspective rather than just a costing perspective or a timing perspective.
Yeah. I'm thinking about like design build contractors, right? And I just wrote down, you've got the design stage of the project, you've got the build stage of the project, and then maybe you've got the warranty stage of the project afterwards. And in each one of those areas, there's going to be potential pleasure and pain associated with each one of those three areas. And to be able to understand that and to articulate the pivots that occur within each one can really help you to hone in your marketing message and really communicate in such a way that your clients are saying yes every time you're going through the communication of how you guys actually do business.
Okay, so then, honestly, and I want to build on that a little bit. And so every phase that you just talked to, let's just go through the warranty phase, right? I mean, I've been there, it's like kind of pisses us off as clients, when you find out something is wrong and all of a sudden, you're informing the contractor, and they're like, not really caring, or they're busy, or, it's like, oh, well, they're blaming a subcontractor. I don't know. So it's like, how do you get on top of that? And how you get on top of anything, Eric, is through a process. Even in that warranty phase, from a brand building perspective, and even an expertise perspective and a transparency perspective, you build a process in there where you have like, hey, we're going to have a meeting at 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, and a year. And we're just going to, I don't know, I'm just making this up. We're going to sit down and talk about, hey, how are things going? Right. And you get ahead of it. So if something does pop up, it's like, okay, well, we had a process for that, remediation.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, this stuff is fascinating. Okay, so I want to bring you back to 9/11 here and the marketing message. And when it comes to transparency, right, there is a limit, I would imagine, to the transparency aspect.
That's correct.
And I think this is important with construction companies too, because on the one hand, we do want to be transparent, but on the other hand, we're making sausage a lot of times in construction projects. And at the end of the day, the client wants the sausage, and I'm not sure I want to take them within my factory and show them the different parts that are putting into the sausage. And I'm not trying to lie or I'm not trying to deceive my client, but you're paying me to make sausage. So what are the limits of that transparency, Mike?
Okay, I'm going to tell you a really interesting story, and this is going to be might be a mind-blowing concept to business owners, but it's absolutely true. So I'm going to answer your question with a one-word answer. I'm going to illustrate how that played out on 9/11. Culture. Your culture that takes years and years to establish will define you in a crisis. And here's how defined. And by the way, I was there, right? So you're not going to see this in an article or a book. Maybe we should write a book about what happened on 9/11 there at NORAD. But on 9/11, I was a Marine. I was the only Marine in that public affairs division within NORAD. We had the Navy was there, the Army was there, the Air Force, the whole unit was led by an Air Force colonel, and we even had a Coastie in there. Okay, so you had all the military services represented, and each of them had a cultural background that was very different. And so when that crisis hit, I'll tell you exactly the story of what happened. So the Army said, and I'm not kidding, screw the media. We're so pissed off about them about Vietnam. They don't deserve to hear a thing. And I'm not kidding. That was actually said. The Navy said, well, we can't do anything until we get a hold of higher command inside the Pentagon. And they just evacuated, and we don't know how to talk to anybody. So we're not going to say anything until we get a hold of higher headquarters. A very Navy thing to say. The Air Force said, well, we got to have lots of meetings. We got to meet with these people and these people and these people. And I'm not kidding. And I'm the only Marine there. And the Marines have a culture of transparency, candor, and communication. And I said, look, we can't say nothing. That's the one thing we can't do is saying nothing. We have to say something. And there's always something that we can say. And unfortunately, I was a junior officer, so that didn't get taken to the bank immediately. But it sure did after that call at midnight on 9/11 going into 9/12. It worked. Yeah. And so what you see there is the cultures defining the reaction in a crisis.
Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah. So then you have to understand what your culture is, and your marketing strategy is going to come out of not only what your clients are saying to you, which is very important, but also the culture of your company. You're going to be marrying together the market realities with the culture that you bring to those market realities.
Well, let's just say that we have wow, this is fascinating. I love this so much. Again, you have our culture within our company is defined as we took it from the Netflix culture, stunning colleagues. So that's how we define our culture. 2 words, stunning colleagues. If you're not a stunning colleague, you don't work at RSM.
A studying colleague.
Stunning
colleague. Okay.
Stunning colleague. We have a stable of stunning colleagues. By the way, this works is so incredibly powerful. Think about it from a contractor perspective. How can you articulate your culture? 1 to 2 or 3 words. So we define it as stunning colleagues. So when you're trying to recruit people, you're saying, hey there, new grad, or hey there, whatever. You want to be part of a company of stunning colleagues? We only hire stunning colleagues. And then we define what that means. But let's just say that from a contractor perspective, we say we have a culture of entrepreneurship. Everybody in our company is supposed to run their function like it's their own business. Okay, which means they're not making excuses. They have ownership, and they're not making. They're looking for solutions rather than passing off the buck. I mean, I'm just making this up, but if you can say something like that, it's going to mean something to a prospect and a recruit and your current employees, because now it becomes a challenge question. Hey, Mike, are you running your function like it's your own company? Because it doesn't look like it, bro. Or great job. Thanks for taking that initiative, and you weren't waiting a week to hear from me. You nailed it. And maybe it even costs a little bit. Maybe you made a mistake, but I'm going to reward the initiative of that employee.
Yep. That's interesting. Well, I know one thing, Mike. I could sit here and talk about marketing for hours and hours and hours. So what I'd like you to do is just to sum up our conversation. If I'm a construction contractor, what are the 1 to 3 things that I need to do immediately to start to make progress on my marketing, messaging, and success?
Okay, so I would say number 1, you got to take ownership of it yourself.
As the owner of the company.
As the owner of the company, you got to own it, okay? And it is so powerful if you do it. And then you do the second thing. You articulate your strategies, 3 strategies, right? And then the third thing, and the last thing that you really focus on is, of course, the execution of these things. Just like building out a project, you've got to execute. And so just like in marketing, right, you have to execute. You have to evaluate, measure and evaluate. And, so that's where, you hand it off to your management team, right, to start executing. And I'm not even saying you have to hire a marketing person. And I'm not even saying that you have to hire a marketing agency, okay? So having said that, I think that the immediate thing, having said that companies across the board need to start doing is capturing their stories and telling their stories on their websites, okay? So that's tactically, if you're not doing that right now, oh my God, it can be so much fun, right? Using drones and mini cams on hoists or lifts and all of that. And you're telling your time-lapse photography, and you're telling the stories of your projects. I mean, honestly, the get out of jail card is doing that while you embrace your strategies and what we need to be doing over 3 to 5 years with the management team to really transform the brand of our company and our differentiation amongst our competitive set and our strategic messaging. Is that a fair enough answer?
No, that's good. So tell us just a little bit more about your company, Mike, how people can get in touch with you, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, totally, right? So there's 2 companies that we have. We kind of broke it out. The first one is RSM Marketing, and that is kind of the execution, right? Doing all the tactical stuff, all the communication stuff. That's rsmconnect.com. And if you're looking for some higher level, just some consultation, consultation. Look, I love getting on the phone with business owners for 30 minutes to an hour at no cost and going through some of these, how do we do this with the management team? And there's models, right? So we can throw models at these things because it's not gas, and mirrors. It's all pretty much scientifically, this is how you do it. And so that brand is Raptors USA at raptors.biz, raptors.biz. And that's how you can set up a meeting with me. And if you just want to do this all yourself, then just go buy the book, The Great Marketing Lie, and you can actually get some free chapters on the rsmconnect.com site, rsmconnect.com. You can get free chapters there. Don't do nothing. Out of this, if you're a business owner, don't do nothing, right? Do the Marine Corps thing. Do something strategic today. What's the one thing?
Yep. What I'd recommend is if you've listened this far, you need to go back and listen again because there were some incredible insights that Mike shared during this conversation. Mike, I really appreciate it. All the links are in the show notes to Mike's website and to the book. And so if you've found some value here, feel free to contact Mike. And Mike, I do really appreciate your time here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Enjoyed a lot.
Thank you for listening to Construction Genius. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Mike. I know I did. I could talk about marketing all day, like I said in the interview. Feel free to reach out to Mike on his website. Links are in the show notes. As I said in the introduction, you should really look at the transcript on my website. There's a tremendous amount of value there. One of the things you can do, this is actually a good idea, take the transcript, copy and paste it in multiple parts into ChatGPT and ask it to give you a summary of the show. And that will give you some bullet points that will help you to process the information and use it effectively. And of course, feel free to give the show a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. And I appreciate you listening to Construction Genius.